Justice Earl, the founder of HandSnap Incorporated. We make photography equipment for mobile.
And tell me what you enjoyed about the CDX Global Summit and some things or a thing that stood out to you.
I loved everything about the summit, just the fast-paced nature, how there was kind of a variety of voices from so many different technological backgrounds and perspectives. A big thing that I loved, the focus was on the customer and creating an environment and creating value for the customer and really getting to know and steward your customer and treat him really well.
And what are you feeling optimistic about on the future of where technology is going right now?
I think so. My most optimistic outlook on voice control or AI or any of this stuff is to free up our kind of lower level operations of our life, the things that we just have to manage, and it'll free up our mind space and it'll free up our time and creative output so that we're more self-actualized as people.
If you were invited to speak at CDX next year, what would you talk about and why?
I would talk about that optimization of self-actualization. So not just efficiency, but making sure that we're on purpose with our life. So I think that there's a crisis of purpose in the U.S. when 76% of Americans report that they strongly dislike or dislike their job somewhere in there. That's way too many people that don't like where they go and spend their life every day. So I would talk about making sure your own purpose, your own personal purpose, is in trajectory with your brand, with your mission, with your company, with what you're doing, with the majority of your time in life.
Everything is different now with mobile, and we're at this point where we're going to be able to change the game.
We always like to be slow into this because anything around customer service, customer expectation, when you want to talk to me, usually you're not contacting my service centers to say, awesome job, right? I screwed something up, right? Surprise.
So think about what's happening in every day, right? The trends are changing, and they're changing our expectations. Now, often companies don't design the business to constantly change and evolve their customer experiences. Alison Griffin from Intel, thank you, Alison. Ian Language from Intuit, and Alex Amato from Adobe. Thank you, and welcome.
I'll dive in on that one. So in our view, absolutely we don't own the data. We can't own the data actually legally in many senses. We can use the data and our customers expect us to use the data. What they expect us to do with it is very different now than it was 3 years ago.
My name is Daniela Vidas and I lead the research team at App Annie. App Annie essentially is the leading data provider as it relates to all things apps. And so we've been tracking the app space since 2010 in terms of app store related activity, from acquisition to how companies build apps, the goals for them, helping them measure and drive not just acquisition but engagement and develop their product because it's a critical channel to engage customers.
Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. I tend to be really loud, so I was like, let's keep it down so we're not screaming in people's ears. Morning, really excited to be here, guys. My name is Dini Mehta, pronounced Houdini for Yahoo. And I'm from Drawbridge. I've been there about 4.5 years and really excited to talk about this topic around people-based marketing.
And their desire to go into cash, which went to paying zero, by the way, was not irrational. And you don't want to talk somebody out of something. This is my point about engagement. Now they're engaging.
Right.
Our job is not to talk them out of it.
So did you shift your marketing messaging? Did you change how you thought about, communicating with your customers and your potential customers?
We certainly in the sort of 2008, 2009, 2010 fundamentally shifted the marketing to stability, confidence, Schwab can help you through this.
Where we are going, good enough is dead. The future doesn't just happen, the future gets happened. The new way to work is to embrace technology, but not to become it.
Services company, we specialize in agile software testing and data quality assurance.
Have lunch, enjoy, and we'll see you in a little bit.
Consumers prefer personal finance content delivered in text-based, right? Text-based content.
So as a financial institution, as a credit card company, you have access to very deep personal identified information, right? So how do you how do you find the balance between having personalization, but then also trying to be respectful of not just going a little bit too far, but also making sure that the information that you're feeding into whatever personalization algorithms you have are not accidentally exposing personal identifiable information?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's very complicated. I think the easiest way that I can answer it is that we're forced to be very balanced. We're legally, the regulations, we have to be very balanced in how we personalize our content. And it's a very tricky thing that we're constantly thinking about. It's evolving very quickly.
What's happening in the health space, probably I would say kind of pioneering digital transformation across all the industries. So actually, let's take it away.
AdChain is an open source project, so the business logic and the actual code is open for everyone to look at, so you can trust how this technology works and how we've secured it.
I laughed, I learned, and I got to spend time with amazing people. Really, really grateful.
G'day, I'm Lucas Parry, and I'm the CEO of Congo.
And you've been here for the last 2 days at the CDX event. So tell me a good takeaway that you got from it.
Yeah, a lot of takeaways. I mean, networking was fantastic. The sessions were fantastic. I think for me, the discussions around cutting edge marketing technologies and how people are implementing it was very valuable for me. And particularly how it applies to my business and my company, but yeah.
And then when you think about the future of technology, what are you most excited about the future of technology right now?
Oh, it's exciting because the rapid pace of development, and it's so fast. I feel like if you've got an idea in today's technology and environment, if it's not already built, you can build it. And so the speed of innovation is exciting. I think the consumer adoption is very fast. They're wanting it. Consumers, you could even argue, are driving a lot of the innovation of just the products that they want, and they're very quick to obviously use it. It's an exciting time to be a technologist.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Experience practice, experience as a service. How do you distribute what it feels like to be a FiOS customer to all the places where our customers are, and actually do that versus saying that we're doing that by driving a bunch of media to our website and our app and our stores. So with that, Drew, if you want to come on up, and I'll quit talking the slides.
Great.
Crawl, walk, run. And I feel like for innovation, there's no time for that. Startups don't say let's crawl, walk, run. They go, let's go fast. So prove me wrong or help me out here, because I just feel that entire approach is antithetical to being successful in innovation.
And one thing that you'll notice is the diverse faces there, and I think that's the magic of digital. And part of our role as digital leaders is to ensure that we're really tapping into the power of the diverse experiences across all markets. And is blockchain the answer to brand safety? I don't know, but it's a really interesting and timely question to dial into. It took me a couple years to just figure out what the hell the damn term means. But
I don't claim to be an expert in blockchain. No one is an expert in blockchain, but we're definitely building blockchain technologies.
That's sort of a fuzzy term, and my responsibilities include demand generation and business operations, so always looking for ways to improve business across the whole. And Drew asked me to sort of start off with what keeps me up at night. That's a kind of standard question. And it's a very literal thing. It actually does keep me up at night, which is just trying to keep up. You keep up with AI, got it. How about the both of you?
Yeah, so I mean, similar to Phil, I mean, again, culture, I like to try and foster within the team that sort of search for knowledge, so everybody is sharing knowledge with each other. I mean, I'm always interested in what NVIDIA's up to. Andrew Ng, obviously, he's very interesting in everything he talks about. He's putting new courses out on Coursera, which is super interesting as well. I think there's an email I subscribe to called Futurism, so it's not just AI and ML, it's a lot of emerging tech stuff, but I find that very useful. That's delivered straight to my inbox, so that's super easy to parse. I subscribe to Wired UK and Wired US. I find that interesting as well. So, I tend to scan a lot of this stuff and just pluck out. I don't read Wired cover to cover, but I scan it and I pluck out the things that I find.
There's a Wired writer back there.
I read Wired cover to cover.
And Jen, how much is that? We're right at the hour. But
I mean, it's many of the same areas. I always tried. Coursera is a great place. You can take a couple hours of training and become pretty educated pretty quickly. I use alerts, not surprisingly, but I think that's a good way to funnel on specific topics and get not just the one or two, but really a more broad. So I see stuff coming in for APAC and other places where I'm like, wow, there's some really interesting things. I also like to keep an eye on the research institutions. I mean, obviously we have a group inside of Google that I can keep a very close eye on, but there's others that are doing some great work, that I think is good to keep an eye on. So.
Our UNICEF products that we've put out in the last month or so have been pretty cool and interesting. They're riding on the front page of Amazon right now. And let's start with our two-time speaker, Rajesh. What do you think about when you think about voice as the next kind of lane for kids, as the kid power? Where do you think you're able to change the paradigm of how that's going to affect stuff in the home or parents and their kids and all that?
As a bit of context, UNICEF Kid Power is a wearable that we launched a few years ago. That is a Kid Power band. If you don't have one, you should. And the way it works is kids get active. The band tracks your movement. Every couple thousand steps, you earn a Kid Power point. It vibrates, gives you haptic feedback, scrolls a message saying you're amazing because every 10 points you earn unlocks funding for a packet of therapeutic food for a malnourished child. So the more kids move, the more they help. We're embedding philanthropy and service and global awareness as a daily habit in kids' lives. We're now the #2 selling wearable brand at Target. We're the largest EdTech deployment in Title I high-need elementary schools in the US. And we're scaling fast. And so one of the big challenges we have is the only way for a child to experience this power of getting active to save lives is by having a device, and that's a huge barrier to entry.
I think the biggest effect is going to be on the shopping itself, because I was reading that by 2020, in like 2 years, the expectation is that 30% of the online shopping is going to be through screenless browsing.
Ted Haas, I'm the Chief Digital Officer for Transform Our World.
Great. And what did you enjoy most about the event? What stands out to you?
Well, I mean, they say if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. Yeah. I was definitely in the right room. If you're the dumbest guy in the room, you're in the right room.
What do you most
just brilliant. I mean, to be in this environment is great.
What are you most optimistic about when you think about the future of technology?
I mean, it's going to transform customer service, and it's all about customer service. It's going to take a lot of leadership there to make it happen. But I see it transforming customer service and making the individual very important in how we can serve them. And that's how that was kind of the takeaway of where everything goes. An underlying theme I saw in every speaker. That's great. Another very, very encouraging thing was transparency and the technology that's coming that's going to be able to embed transparency. I love the impact that can have on society.
Yeah. That's great. If you were given a $10 million grant to create a voice app for children, what might you create and who would you want to work with to create that app?
Wow, it's a big question. I think if I got $10 million grant, I think I'm just going to escape. I don't know. I think I would look into what are the cases that people need the most, right? And then is there a case where voice and an application like that can truly impact their lives? I don't think I have anything from the top of my head, but I would look into, are there opportunities for learning and education? Are there opportunities for creating things that can get the community behind and then supporting kids through, similar to the device you guys created? Something around those areas, but I don't know if there's a particular brand or initiative that I would go for, other than just going away with the $10 million.
So, education has shifted to much more IRL, in real life kind of learning. It used to be called project-based learning, where you're not teaching subjects, you're working with kids to solve problems, and domain knowledge comes into play in a useful context because everybody learns better that way. So I think as you think about the application of voice and sort of ambient computing, if it can be with you when you're out and about, that's amazing for a kid to walk out into the world and be able to learn things and be able to nudge to learn things. I would be so terrified of having that kind of exposure, child have that kind of exposure to a system that was not in the child's best interest. If it was in the child's best interest, it would be amazing. It would be a fantastic way for a child to discover the world and put pieces together that actually create learning and knowledge. It's just, it's so risky because already with smart watches for young kids, I don't know if you've seen the news. People hack into it. Now you've got GPS and location tracking on a young child, and that's dangerous. Or a lot of the stuff that's used for geofencing or geo-tracking kids. Psychologically, that's terrible for kids because you're basically telling them the world is not safe, right? So commercializing this technology makes me very afraid. But if you can somehow use it in a way with the child at the center, and it's really child-centric and truly introducing the child into the world, it would be amazing.
Do you think, a question for you, do you think that there's an opportunity for having those devices in classrooms? Would that be something that would help teachers, almost like an assistant for teachers, where you can ask questions and things like that? Do you see that as something that could help kids?
Yeah, it's in a way it's no different from having tablets where you can search.
Yeah.
It's just a different mode.
Yeah.
I think the intelligence, the AI is the piece that's new and different. It's less the voice, and I don't know.
All schools did some testing there, we're connecting with them.
I just think you should have a $10 million plan for a really smart brand like Nestle. and then you could run some media dollars behind it. You could have a social campaign. You could attack all of their different elements of the brand and almost refine the messaging to create almost a new brand on what is Nestle in 2018 and 2020, as opposed to just relying on the history of the brand. So, and I think you could do that with a lot of different brands that may make sense. I'm not saying that Nestle's that one, but you know what I mean? Or even like an airline, right? Like what is $10 million behind voice for American Airlines, and what does that look like? And where are they able to solve problems that they have where, I think 3% of their audience of travelers on American Airlines generate 90% of the revenue. So how could voice be a vehicle to allow them to not just connect with high-end, super business people, but really that mom that only takes 2 trips a year? Is that something that $10 million could affect for a long-term?
And if you could use that $10 million to drive compassion instead of consumption, what would that look like?
What does that look like?
Well, hey, I've been at CDX now for the last 3 days. It's been incredible. I knew it was going to be. My name's Utile. I am an entrepreneur. I love people. I build businesses. I sell the future. That's my thing. And I'm fortunate to be friends with Drew Yanni, who runs the CDX Global Summit, and super grateful he invited me and empowered me to be able to bring some of the folks that I've been working with. And, this was a really meaningful event for me. There were things that finally clicked for me when it comes to blockchain, when it comes to machine learning, some of these really advanced technologies. I feel like I've had an optimistic, more of a utopic view of where technology is going, and I got some tactics and some science behind it that allow me to have a more clear trajectory of how to actually aim for that. When I think about the future of technology, I think it's easy to be dystopic. I think it's hard to be utopic. I think it's easy to be anxious and fearful. The movies made that easy. The books we've read have made that easy. I think it's hard work to have a positive outlook. So when I think about it, I work hard to think about it in a positive way. And I love to talk about the future of technology. And the reason why it's important for humanity, and for leaders especially, to focus on, hey, get the dystopic fears out and then talk about how to mitigate that risk, but then focus on where can we go and then figure out the solutions to get there and empower others to be a part of the solution. On Tuesday, November 28th, just several weeks from now, at Runway, the incubator, inside Twitter's headquarters in San Francisco, I am part of a event called The Future of Technology. Several of my friends that are mentors to me, I have a ton of honor and respect for them, will be there speaking. I believe this event will be revolutionary. You have to come or tune in online to see what I mean by that. Very excited. I'll be promoting this event for the next few weeks. Leading up to it, I imagine that I'm going to really enjoy doing a video wrap after that event, even more so than this. Thanks for your attention.